Hi there and welcome back to the ESPN Footy Podcast.
Hello everybody, welcome to the ESPN Footy Podcast for another week. Proudly sponsored by Subway. Get your mid-match feast delivered fresh. Subway, eat fresh. Matt Walsh, Jake Michaels and Christian Joly with you here today. Back on Zoom. Jake, not feeling too well and it seems like COVID has finally caught up to you.
It has, unfortunately. First time for everything and not feeling great. So back at home but soldiering on and trying to get through another episode.
Bit of time in front of the TV, I'm sure, over the weekend to watch a few games of footy.
Yeah, when I wasn't sleeping, I was watching the footy and some good games, some average games, some average performances from some teams that we expect more from. But yeah, overall another good round, and it's amazing how quickly you get to that final 5-6 weeks of the season. So just looking ahead to finals now.
Absolutely. Big episode ahead. We're going to look at North. How Richmond have beaten the Stats twice in a row, but it's obviously not a good thing, as well as the Bombers' resurgence and Kilda's shortcomings, a fair bit more. Before we get into it, though, something, gents, we noticed from round 18. Christian, anything take your fancy this week?
Well, I think a few people have probably noticed the main one is Rory Laird against Collingwood on Saturday. Reached the 20 tackles in a game mark, so world record tackles. I think we had 3 players reach 19 previously, but first player to hit 20. But it was the next day that I was probably another impressive tackler, Joly, West Coast debutant, mid-season draftee, pick 1. Finished with 11 tackles, which is actually the second most tackles on debut of any player. And the only player above him is Jai Newcomb, who was also a mid-season draftee named Jai with a bit of a fancy haircut and sort of came in late in the season and tackled. So, yeah, just one to watch. Joly seems to be, obviously,
And we've lost Christian there for a second. Well, that's always good. Jake, Jai and Jai, that's a bit interesting. I think the Matrix is kind of glitching out on us a bit.
It is, but it was a pretty impressive performance from Rory Laird with the 20 tackles. It was funny watching that game. The commentary was all around Sam Berry early and wondering if he'd be able to break that 19 mark. And then all of a sudden, Rory Laird seemed to come from nowhere, and before you knew it, he was up to 20. So yeah, pretty incredible effort. The thing I noticed was a lot of young players getting lots of credit for playing well over the weekend. Obviously, Nick Dacos is probably top of that list. But the player that I've really been impressed with this season and certainly the last couple of weeks is Chad Warner. I mean, he seems like he's gone from pretty good young player to almost the best player on the team overnight. He's been in their best 2 or 3 players just about every game over the last 8 weeks. He is a phenomenal player. He's kicking goals.
Yep.
They put a statistic up where it was something along the lines of for midfielders, score involvements, goals, goal assists, and the only 2 players that rank where he ranks for those 3 categories. Marcus Bonapelli and Christian Petrarca, and then himself. So it's phenomenal how much of an impact he's having on games forward as centre. And he's still getting his 30 touches in the midfield. He had 35 touches, kicked a goal, 15 contested possessions on the weekend, and really led that incredible comeback against Freo over in the West. He's just... I probably didn't expect him to be this good, certainly not this soon.
I think the thing that I find interesting is just how Sydney can signify these players so quickly. I think we said in our stocks column this week, it was just such a Swans performance, like a Bloods performance. And he really did. He was at the contest, but he was also streaking away from it. He was doing second efforts. He was getting to the next contest. He was doing all this stuff that you really expect from someone like a Luke Parker, who's a veteran of that squad and has been doing that for years and years. And for him to kind of do that, and then only got the 5 coaches' votes, Jake. Did you notice this? Because someone put the wrong Warner.
Exactly. Someone goes to show that they don't even know what his name is. And
Corey didn't play.
Yeah. He was robbed of 5 coaches' votes. Hopefully they sort that out because it was clearly deserved the 10. And yeah, it was just a phenomenal performance. And he's going to poll a fair few Brownlow votes, I would have thought. And he's a player that... yes, he racks up a lot of ball. And we've spoken about it before. Certain players get criticised for maybe the lack of impact they have per possession, but he is certainly someone that really is very damaging every time he gets the ball. You notice him 35 touches and a goal for Warner on the weekend. Amazing effort, and he's certainly a player to keep an eye on.
You talk about players and Brownlow votes and either needing a year to get into the umpire's sort of line of sight or having some sort of feature that makes them stand out. These sort of 2-minute noodle blonde NSYNC haircut from the 2000s. Is that going to be enough, Jake, to get a few votes over the line?
It's call me crazy, but you do. Think back to Brownlow medal winners. Most of them, the vast majority of them, have some sort of distinct feature that makes them stand out. That's just the way it is. Yeah, look, he's probably a year away from getting the votes. Like, he's not going to win it this year, but I think his second half of the year has been incredible. He's been really, really good. And look, throughout the whole season, he's been really solid as well. But like I said, he just seems to have gone from a point where he was a good player for Sydney to now, is he their best player?
Interesting. One to watch over the next few weeks, especially as the Swans start cruising towards September action. Something I noticed, Luke Bruce, one of the most consistent, underrated forwards we've seen for many years. And Jake, you and I chat about him quite often most years when it comes up, that he has a big game again and people go, oh yeah, remember Luke Bruce, he can kick bags and all this sort of stuff. Another 6 goals on the weekend. The thing I noticed though is that he hasn't played a game this season in which he's been held goalless. He's kicked a goal in every single game he's played. He's now up to, I think, 475 goals. So he's within reach of the 500 club, which honestly is just a phenomenal effort from a guy that you probably don't have as your first picked in your All-Australian 40 or your All-Australian squad year after year.
I think he only has one All-Australian selection.
You're right, yeah.
And when his career is done, he'll obviously have 500 plus goals. Is he the best? I think maybe Eddie Betts probably has him pipped, but aside from Eddie Betts, is he the second best small forward of the last decade?
Yeah. Who else would be in that conversation? You probably look at someone like Charlie Cameron, hasn't been around for long enough yet to sort of have that discussion.
No, I think it's clearly Luke Bruce.
Yeah.
And I think
you might be right.
By the end of it, I mean, he may have an argument to say, well, hang on a minute, I'm the best small forward of the modern era.
Well, yeah, you could argue that, given also that his team achievements. And I know that you got to weigh up the difference between team success and individual success, but he's clearly had both as well. So maybe he is in that discussion.
Yeah.
Well, look, let's get into the main agenda of the podcast. For the second straight week, the Tigers somehow snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, gents. And it truly seems like they lost those games instead of Gold Coast or North Melbourne actually winning them, which kind of just begs us to ask the question, what's going on at Tigerland? Jake, it reminds me of a period in 2012 when the Tigers lost 3 games in a row, one to Gold Coast after the siren. That was, of course, the infamous Carmichael Hunt game. They lost the next week to North Melbourne at the MCG by, I think, 2 or 3 points. And
I think it was also 4 points because it mirrored what happened this time. So
you might well be right. And then the Blues the week after, so 3 in a row by under a kick, and I think it was Brock McLean kicked the winner on a wet night at the G, and the Tigers were done with about 30 seconds to go. Truly snatching defeat from the draws of victory. And they weren't without their mistakes in the last sort of 5 minutes either, Richmond. They were under a lot of pressure, obviously. Todd Goldstein kicks a goal, then Cam Zurhaar kicks a goal, and they needed to sort of get the ball. But there was a period of 2 or 3 minutes where Nankervis looks into the middle as the skipper and kicks to centre-half back, and it's a turnover. There was a kick out from defence to a 2-on-1 when Richmond was actually up at the time. Then there was the Jake Arts mistake as he took the mark and ran into goal. It all added up to obviously a loss, but this statistical anomaly, Christian, where we've seen the Tigers lose 2 games in a row despite posting 30 scoring shots, which is bizarre. And we actually talked about this stat about 7 or 8 weeks ago on the podcast, where if you have 30 scoring shots, I think at the time the win rate was 93%, and they've somehow done themselves twice in a row.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row. So back-to-back weeks, they've finished with 30 plus scores. And lost. And this year alone, there's been 60 times where a team's had 30 shots at goal, 58 wins and 2 losses. And those 2 losses have been the last 2 weeks for Richmond. So, they must be just kicking themselves for bad misses and things like that. But again, there is signs throughout the game that their defense is actually, the last 4 or 5 weeks has probably been a bit leaky. So yes, all the sort of focus on that is going to go on their accuracy and how much that hurt them. But there is still some sort of leakage in defence that's starting to happen in the last couple of weeks that sort of, it needs to be sort of sorted out before finals.
Jake, you often look at teams when they are inaccurate early and you think, well, it might even out. They might get to sort of this 12-12, 14-14 sort of spot and be able to salvage the game. But it was just sort of the perfect storm where North were quite accurate for a lot of that game. And then the Tigers were inaccurate. Jack Reebok kicks 2 goals, 6, kicked 2 in a row or 2 in a minute. I think just at the start of the end of the third term to make them really sort of back within striking distance of the Roos. And you thought, hang on, this is going to happen to North Melbourne again. But it just goes to show that even against maybe the poorer teams, you just cannot continue to kick inaccurately, because if the other team has a day out of the box, they're going to do you.
Yeah, of course. And they were done. That's what cost them in the end, of course. But there are a couple of things that I was watching throughout the game and just wondered why, not to question Damien Hardwick's coaching, but the one for me is Liam Baker. He's been a player this year a couple of times. It's really flipped the script throughout games for Richmond, got them back into games, and really sparked them when they've needed a spark, especially when Dusty hasn't been playing, and Shea Bolton's been struggling or relatively well held. And that was what was happening against North. But Baker just continued to play as this high forward pocket that really had no impact on the game. Didn't have a run through the midfield at all. Didn't get involved. Ended the game, I think, with eight touches.
He's at nine disposals, and the big one I was looking at is 1 ground ball get. He's one of your sort of best sort of loose ball, ground ball sort of players. They got beaten in that stat 99-77. So -22 is just an absolute smashing in that. And one of your best players has only finished with 1 for the game. Yeah,
just thought he could have gone on the ball, certainly in that last quarter when the game was on the line. But go back to the first half. Forget the scoring, forget the inaccuracy. Go back to the first half. The game, Richmond shouldn't have even been in this game. North smashed them in the first half. It was pretty embarrassing for Richmond, for a team that a fortnight ago we were saying, they'll make the 8 and no one will want to face them, especially when some of their A graders come back. To go and lose in the fashion they did to Gold Coast, where they had such a commanding lead and coughed it up, was one thing. But then to be belted in the first half, come back and then still fall short again to North. I have to reassess what I think of them now, and they probably don't deserve to play finals. Will they get there? It's a coin flip now. It's a real 50-50.
That bottom part of the 8 sort of tightened up again. We looked at the 8 as a whole being quite tight a couple of weeks ago, but there's probably now a bit of a rift between those top teams and the ones in the bottom half of the 8 and just outside, sort of looking in. The interesting thing for me, and we've talked about X scores a few times, Christian, the expected score of a game, depending on where you're kicking from at goal and the pressure you're under, what the expected score is. And Richmond really should have spanked North.
Yeah, the score should have been 106-75 Richmond's way. So 31-point victory for Richmond is, what the expected score said. But yeah, Richmond finished with 88 instead of their 106. And North Melbourne, the same thing. They finished with 92 instead of their 75. So, yeah, sort of spoke about how you can't control the opposition's accuracy. You can only control your own. But, yeah, just one of those disastrous games for Richmond. But, again, it's always funny when and we talk about upsets and bottom teams winning. It was also the other interesting stat I noticed that Richmond had 9 more scoring shots than North Melbourne. So, again, looking last 10 years, 98% winning record when you have 9 or more scoring shots against your opposition. There's been 2 games this year where a team's had at least 9 or 10 more scoring shots and lost. That was Richmond this week against North Melbourne and Collingwood round 4 against West Coast, which is also another, when West Coast won while they were on the bottom of the ladder. So you can just see when these upsets do happen, a lot of people want to sort of run with it and say, a North back or a Richmond finish. It's like, well, no, I think this game right here was one out of the box. You play it 99 more times and Richmond probably win 98 of them.
We said that last week about the game against the Suns.
Yeah, and as I said,
those 8 points,
they hurt you. Yeah,
they hurt you massively.
Yeah, but as I said, the thing, if I'm a North Melbourne supporter, I'm taking away that they went in and had a crack, won a lot of contested ball, and won a lot of the ground ball. And as I said, they certainly looked up and about. But as I said, for 9 or 10 scoring shots more to the opposition, that's usually when probably haven't been good enough today. We've probably conceded too many scores. But yeah, luckily that North still finished with the 4 points.
The famous dead cat bounce of getting a new coach in, and the week after winning, Christian, the fairy tale continues for that kind of setup.
Yeah, again, so we're up to 5 of the past 7 now.
Have won the week after.
Have won the week after. So once they've come in, so again, just unexplained. Can't explain what the psychological changes that happens to a playing group when things like that happen. But clearly, if you're losing a coach mid-season, as we've said previously, you're not winning a lot of games. So you to have a 5 out of 7 record for a new coach coming in shows that somehow they do get that improvement.
Jake, it must do wonders for not only the fans who would have enjoyed their first win for a long time, but also for players like Flynn Perez, first win in 15 attempts. I think I saw on 360 last night, Robbo revealed a stat that it was Ben Mackay's first win in Victoria in front of a crowd, which is just kind of crazy to think that, he's played 40 odd games and has only just sort of notched that achievement.
Oh, absolutely. I think hearing Jai Simpkin talk after the game and Cam Zerha and some of these guys talk about what it means, I think you can kind of, as a fan, watch every week and, see them lose and not really think much of it. But, these guys are going they're training every day. They're going playing games, traveling all over the country to play games. And when you're losing week in, week out, it must be pretty deflating. So I think when you barrack for a team that wins every week or just about every week, you can kind of get used to it. But at the same time, you probably can get used to the losing too. So when you can snap it and have a win, it should be celebrated, even if it's only moving from 18th to 17th or even 18th and staying 18th. Now all of a sudden it's a hot race for the wooden spoon.
Certainly is. Another team that was down the bottom has won 3 in a row. The Bombers, bit of a late surge up the ladder, a bit of deja vu in that sense as well. And Rowan Connolly, who writes columns and sometimes features on this podcast, said in a segment that he does on video for us, espn.com.au/AFL, that Essendon fans should actually probably be a bit pissed off instead of happy with the results of the last 3 weeks, because once again, they've just squandered an opportunity earlier in the year to be a competitive outfit. They're going to come home with a wet sail. They're going to miss finals again, and it's just the same old story. Slow starts and a late charge, Christian. Do you agree with what Rowan's saying as a passionate Bombers man?
I'll let Rowan stick to the sort of emotive stuff with Essendon, but I don't know if it's a wasted chance. Again, it was a pretty red-hot competitive start to the season. I know 60, no one expected them to be third last and things like that, but I mean, yeah, can't they just enjoy what they're seeing in recent weeks? I mean, in the last 5 weeks, rounds 14 to 18, they're second on the form ladder. Only Geelong's better. They're 4-1. The Bombers, first for disposal differential, contested possession differential, first for points for, third for time in forward half. So there's a lot of ticks and a lot of sort of good footy being played by Essendon. So again, I see where Rowan's coming from, but you can only look at the here and now, and the signs are good, or offensively anyway. The signs are looking good for Essendon in terms of they've got an offensive style that they can build on and hopefully can sustain it for a longer period of time next season and get themselves into finals. So yeah, as I said, a lot of ticks in terms of the way they're dominating possession of the ball and territory, but still a few. If you sort of talk about are they a genuine contender for 2023 based on this form, there's still little issues around defence. So again, you look at scoring from clearances, they're the best team at scoring from their clearances, but they're also the third easiest team to score against. So a bit leaky there, and also same as intercept. So they're second best at scoring from intercept. So really exciting once they turn the ball over, they're able to score, but they're being the 5th easiest to also score against from turnovers in the last 4 or 5 weeks. So yes, winning a lot of games based on, quick, exciting footy, but probably, a few holes defensively that they'll have to sort of work on over the offseason if they really want to become a genuine top 8 team next year.
Very much the season might be over, so let's sort of show what we can do offensively and then maybe build the parts defensively over the offseason and throughout. Does it fit Michael Hurley change your thinking on defensively what they can achieve next year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, he's been out of the game for so long. They've got a couple of other young guys. They've got Zach Reed, who's actually coming through the VFL. Zerk Thatcher, has only played probably as a regular the last 5 or 6 weeks. Looks okay. So, but one of their big improvers out of defence, Mason Redman. I mean, in the last 4 or 5 weeks, he's top 10 in the competition for, marks and uncontested possessions. They're really running the ball out through him. So, I think he's 9th in the score in the competition for score launches, which is mainly a ruckman type stat. So he's he's launching a lot of scores as a running defender, and just getting a lot of the ball. So he's looking really good. Jai Caldwell's sort of what we were crying out for at the start of the year, of that defensive type midfielder. Last 2 weeks he's played on Lockie Neal and Took Miller and done a pretty good job, and sort of that's allowed Merritt. I know how Parrish hasn't been playing as often, but it's allowed the other midfielders to sort of run free and sort of get that easy ball like they were getting at the start of the year. So they've just added a few little pieces here and there. But again, Hurley's probably one of those forgotten names of just how good he was, all Australian defender. It's always going to make your team better.
Jake, you said pre-pod that you actually pre-season had the Bombers and the Pies kind of switched on the ladder from where they are currently. Is this a side that you can kind of see the makings of a finals winning team in 2023 to sort of get that monkey off the club's back?
Well, I kind of thought it would be this year, for a lot of the reasons that you guys have already stated. And as you said, I did. I had Essendon, maybe not fifth, but I certainly had them vying for finals again. And Collingwood were at least 8 spots lower on the ladder. So surprised with that. But what I'm seeing from Essendon now is what I expected to see at the start of the year. And I can understand why Rowan and some other Essendon supporters are looking at it and saying, well, personnel's not really that much different. And you can make the case that we're missing our best player in Darcy Parish, and we're playing the best football we've played all year now. So it's hard to get your head around it, and it's hard to sort of understand why. But if they continue playing this way, then we've seen them beat good teams. We're not seeing them just bully average teams. They've beaten 3 good teams in a row now, and certainly teams that had something to play for. And I think they can carry this into next year. And keep the personnel on the park, absolutely. I think they're definitely going to be a chance to make finals again.
Yep. Pissed off, optimistic, or happy with how things are going, Bombers fans? Let us know on Twitter at Footy Tips about how you think Essendon is going heading into 2023.
Hey guys, we know you love your footy, but perhaps you fancy a bit of rugby too. If so, then why not check out ESPN Scrum Reset, where Sam Bruce and Christy Doran discuss all the hot topics in the game, from Super Rugby to the Wallabies and All Blacks, and even further afield. Available wherever you get your pods.
There were some big individual games this weekend. We did talk about, off the top, Rory Laird and his 20 tackles, breaking the record, obviously. Nick Dacos had 40 touches and 3 goals as a 19-year-old. Pretty impressive kind of stuff. Cam Zurhaar kicked 6, including the winner for North. Cozzy Pickett and the Alice kicked 6 and got nominated for Goal of the Year. Luke Bruce kicked 6. A few really great performances in terms of an individual standpoint. Firstly, Christian, I guess Nick Dacos, 29.6 player ratings points. Where does that rank for a player of his age and experience?
So again, rating points 2010 onwards. It's the second highest score in a game by a teenager. And the guy above him is sort of, a lot of these stats. I know Jason Tutt had an awesome debut. He was 20, but Alex Fasolo, another Collingwood player who was 19, who finished with 30.8 rating points in 2011 in his first season. So he holds the record for most rating points by a teenager in a game. But Nick Dacos, 29.6 is the second most ever recorded for a teenager. It was the equal 14th best game this year, so it was sort of a top 15 game. Just one of the better games played by a player in their debut season.
Fair enough. Jake, what was the best performance of the weekend from an individual standpoint from your perspective?
I already gave Chad Warner a bit of praise earlier in the show, and obviously Laird spoken about. I think Dacos was incredible. I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast before, but I've not seen a player with that same Scott Pendlebury poise until I watched Dacos play this year. And maybe it's the fact he's wearing a Collingwood jumper and he's running around next to him, but he just has so much of the Pendlebury traits already. To kick 3 goals and have 40 is just, that's an incredible game for anyone in the league. And I'm not sure how many players, I'm sure Christian could find it, but I would say there's probably only 7 or 8 players currently playing that have ever done that.
Yeah, currently playing. Ooh, geez, you've thrown that in. You might be right. So currently playing. I do have the all-time. So
maybe fewer actually.
99 2000. So 99 onwards again. So champion data times, but again 40 disposals is pretty rare back before then. So not sure how often it happened before 99.
I think Christian Petrarca.
No, he's never reached 40 and 3. So some unusual names in recent years. So again, first player we had recording it, Nathan Buckley back in 99 had 43 and 3.
Gary Ablett.
Robert Harvey, Rashudo, Gary Ablett comes in there in the mid 2000s. But yeah, of existing players, Lachie Neale did it with 42 and 3 in 2015. Dan Hanbury did it with 40 and 3 for the Swans in a game. Josh Kennedy for the Swans as well, 45 and 3 in a game. Seb Ross for St Kilda in 2018 had 40 and 3. Lachie Whitfield in round 9, 2019 was the last player to do it before Nick Dacos did it this weekend.
So he's definitely the youngest of that group, isn't he?
Yes, yeah, definitly.
Not bad, is it?
This is a good list, but Seb Ross, Lachie Whitfield, not players you probably would come to mind straight away. But so what's that? 5 or 6 current players that have done it. And Dan Hanbury doesn't really feel like a current player because he hasn't played for about 5 seasons. So yeah, it's what more do you really need to say? And it's not just the 40. It's every time he gets the ball, he uses it so well. And in Scott Pendlebury's 350th game, who was the player that really, almost like we've got to win for this guy? The guy that had played the fewest games was the one that's like, we need a win for this guy. And he lifted throughout that game. I thought he was just phenomenal. It's incredible that you can even still bet on the actual rising star. There's still a market for it. I think after that game,
glasses, isn't it? Surely.
I would have just said, "Oh, it's over now." Like this guy's gonna, and people are starting to back him for the Brownlow medal. I mean, he can start polling some votes too. Don't worry about Chad Warner. Nick Dacos will be polling as well.
Well, he might have the Corey Warner issue, and he might get some votes taken off him by his brother.
Yeah, he very much might.
Sam Draper's goal. How many times have you watched it, Jake? Because I've watched it probably 30.
Just once. I watched it live, and then I saw the replay. They showed the replay. I've seen it twice. That was a good goal. I was probably a little bit disappointed because I was hoping for a better performance from Gold Coast. Let's say I was That's very bullish last week of seeing Gold Coast playing in September, and hopeful as well. And yeah, just really disappointing performance. Maybe For all the highs of the Anderson goal, yes, you have 8 days to get ready for the next game, but sometimes it's just hard to get back up for it. And to be honest, when Essendon kicked the first 4 goals, I was stunned that Gold Coast responded with the next 4. And then it was just the game was gone from there. Essendon just kicked away. They just looked a class above throughout. So much space, so much time. Like Christian said, with Mason Redmond. What a performance he played. But yeah, the goal, I only watched it once or twice. Good goal. Don't think it's goal of the year.
Well, there's a strong lineup this week because Jeremy Cameron from the pocket at the MCG on Saturday night. Cozzy Pickett, take your pick of any one of his, but his one from the boundary as well. He did the Steph Curry shrug celebration too. Thought that was pretty neat. Which one's going to be the winner of the goal of the week? Do we have a thought?
I'm voting Draper. Again, I don't know if it wasn't the most skillful as in
you're only voting Draper because Draper kicked it. If Merritt kicked
exactly, but it's all part of it. It was that play out of the centre to win the hit out for Matt Guelphy to give the ball back to a ruckman running past as well. That takes balls from Matt Guelphy just to give it back to Draper, and he's kicked it on the outside of the boot after breaking a tackle. It was the complete package for me. It was just I was giggling during the goal. In terms of the most enjoyable goal of the year / round, Sam Draper hands down.
100%. There's something about the flowing locks, the fend off, the call back for the ball as he's stumbling inside 50 with his hand out. The fact that he gets the ball back and then just the limbs everywhere as he somehow gets his boot to it and it floats on through. Some of the crowd shots of fans in the background during that celebration are they're laughing. They're not even cheering. It's just pure joy and laughter. And I thought that's the kind of stuff that we love to see in footy. And I think that's my goal of the week. Is it the goal of the year leader so far?
I called it goal of the year just based on the entertainment factor of the whole play.
I'd be very disappointed if that was the goal of the year. That would remind me of when Matthew Lloyd won goal of the year for that little back heel 2 meters out. It was terrible. Like just because it's a bit different, it's not goal of the year.
No,
every player I understand it's entertaining. I understand it looked cool. I understand it was unexpected. But that doesn't make it goal of the year. There's been 200 goals with more skill kick this year.
I think that we found our tagline for the podcast this week. 200 goals better than Sam Draper's. Is the hype justified or is it hyperbole? The segment where we'll say some statements. You guys tell me whether the hype is justified or I'm speaking in hyperbole. Jake, Will Hayes was stiff to cop 2 weeks for his tackle on Sam Menegola.
Yeah, it was, absolutely. And I feel like this is the 3rd or 4th time on this podcast that we've been talking about something like this where a tackle goes wrong. Not even goes wrong, but a player does get concussed and then the tackler is penalised for it. It wasn't a dangerous tackle in any way. Shouldn't have been a suspension. Shouldn't have even been a fine. Sam Menegola was really unlucky, and I feel sorry for him that he's going to miss a game, and hopefully it is only just one game and he can come back. But for Hayes to be suspended for that and to get a 2-week suspension straight off the bat is just laughable, in my opinion.
We talk about punishing the act and not the outcome, because sometimes you can raise an elbow. It might only graze someone, or it might be, whatever it is, but they get off because they miss. And we talk about punishing the act instead of the outcome. It goes both ways in that the act was not a dangerous tackle. And you're right. I think the key word that you used, Jake, was unlucky, and Menegola was unlucky. I'm just not sure.
Who was it earlier in the year that punched Trent Cotchin? Who was it? Was it Tom Hawkins? Who punched Trent Cotchin?
Oh, no, Franklin was, yeah.
Buddy, yeah, but that's
Franklin.
right. Buddy punched, and what did Buddy get? 1 week or a fine? Like, come on, that's just ridiculous. Buddy punched Trent Cotchin in the face. Yes, you can say, oh, he grazed him or whatever, but it's like he swung. That just goes to show that the whole system is screwed.
Well, what was wrong with Hayes' tackling?
Nothing.
Yeah. So this is what I'm trying to say. It's like you can do all things right, but the way that Menegola might have been balanced, or his foot might have slipped, it was a bit slippery underfoot, might have accentuated how quickly he fell. I don't think you can blame Hayes for that.
Of course you can't.
And I think it would have been a really interesting tribunal case had Carlton chosen to challenge this. But obviously they haven't. Hayes, probably on the outer at Carlton. He's one of the players that you come in or bring him in or send him out, depending on who's coming in or going out with injury or whatever. So it makes sense that they've just sort of copped it on the chin. But if that's a player who might be, for instance, in Brownlow contention, I don't think he's getting, firstly, I don't think he's getting 2 weeks. And secondly, I think Carlton's challenging that and probably getting off given some of the precedents we've seen this season.
Yeah, whether you're in contention for a Brownlow or if it's, you're going to miss a final for something like that.
Yeah,
I just think it's embarrassing from the AFL, and we talk about this all the time, that it's just too much of an emphasis on the outcome as opposed to the action. There's nothing wrong with the action. It should just be ticked off and move on to the next one.
Fair enough. Christian, I'll throw this one to you. The Swans have a top 4 spot to lose.
Oh, I don't know if it's to lose, but yeah, they're sort of looking quite primed to take it. I mean, they run home Adelaide, GWS, the next 2 at home, play North away, Collingwood and St Kilda across the final 3 rounds. So you can almost tip them to go, probably an easy 2 or 3 wins definite in there. And then, Collingwood and St Kilda later in the season, they could be playing St Kilda, who will be probably missing finals at this stage now to get into the top 4. So, probably gone from 4 or 5 weeks ago being my team that was most vulnerable in the 8 to a team that genuinely has a chance to go top 4.
Funny how these things work out, isn't it? But you look at the Swans, they actually have a very strong percentage for a team that's 11-6 at the moment. So their percentage of 120.8 is better by far than any team below them. So I think Richmond's the second best percentage of any side at 115. So they're 5.8% ahead of the Tigers. And then they're a better percentage than both Collingwood and Fremantle, who are above them. And Fremantle's in 4th spot at the moment. So if they can notch the wins, Jake, they're definitely a chance to finish in that top 4 and secure the double chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to be a dangerous team too. So, just looking at the ladder now, that 8th spot is really going to be must watch over the next month or so.
Isn't it? And you know what? It could be a side that is actually pretty good finishing 8th, who could throw a spanner in the works to a 5th ranked side or and progress through to a semi and potentially even further.
But
Jake,
it does feel that the 7 above are locked now, we would think.
Yeah. I'm not sold on the Blues yet either. Would you believe? We'll see.
Probably need one more win. Probably need one more to be safe.
See how things pan out for Carlton. Jake, Friday night's crowd, Richmond and Fremantle, but at Marvel Stadium. will be less than 20,000.
I don't think it'll be less. I don't think so. I know that the Richmond faithful don't like to travel to Docklands for games, but this feels season on the line here. Big game, 50-50 game, hard to pick. Probably was leaning Richmond earlier. Now without Dusty, without Lynch, probably going to towards the Freo side now. Especially
put the call out to the Tiger
after
Army.
their loss. They got to get out. They got to get out and support their side. Otherwise, it'll be another loss. And if they lose, the Bulldogs, Saints, Port, Gold Coast, they're all either level points or one game behind. So there's 5 teams vying for that final spot now. They can't afford another slip up. They've already had their 2.
Yep, absolutely. Do you want to ask me this last one? Have you got it on screen?
I can. Brett Ratton.
Buy some time.
Brett Ratton, was he re-signed too early?
Yeah, it seems like he might have been. We always talk on this podcast about, and Jake, you're pretty strong on this, is giving head coaches 3 years to sort of put their mark on their footy team. And since Ratton took over, he took over sort of 3/4 of the way through when Alan Richardson was dumped 3 years ago. So this is his 3rd full season. In that time, they finished 6th and they made finals. They won a final, lost to Richmond in the semis in 2020. Then they fell back out of the 8 last year, and that was pretty disappointing. They had a strong start to this season, but since the bye have gone 1-6, and he's already been re-signed. I would have just said, let's just see how the end of the 3rd year goes. Then we can renegotiate, because things aren't looking good for the Saints. And we talk about the log jam in that sort of, between sort of 7 and 12 on the ladder. If the Saints miss, I would be not so happy with how Ratton has been able to coach and get the best out of his squad the last few weeks. I mean, the performance against, say, Carlton a couple of Friday nights ago, compared to what they threw up on Friday night against the Bulldogs, smashed around the ground in clearances. And this is a side that, has some pretty decent names in that midfield who can get their hands dirty. They just look disinterested around the contest at times. And really, it could have been a much bigger margin than what the Dogs ended up winning by.
The tackling was one of the real disappointing things. I think they finished with 41 tackles. Well, Laird and Berry had 37 between them.
I think they had 11 at halftime. The Saints, sorry,
11 or 14. Yeah, something
grim.
really. It was just really poor. And I think we've spoken. You're pretty big on this. The gap between a team's best and worst. St Kilda's got to be one of the teams that features pretty high here. Some of their games they've played this year have been just pitiful. But then they have quarters or halves where they just can pile on the scores and they're streaming out of the middle. You just wonder why. And I wonder myself. You see the shots of Brett Ratton in the box, literally scratching his head. And he must be wondering too, why are we so inconsistent?
Yeah. Christian, do they make finals this season?
No, I think they're just going to miss out.
Who is going to get that 8th spot?
It's a tough call, isn't it?
It's always a tough call, and I always get sucked into the team that has it. Like, I know, we're talking about Richmond and what's happened in the last 2 weeks, but it's theirs for them to lose. They've got it at the moment, so
they're doing a good job of losing.
I know they are doing a good job of losing it, but they haven't lost it yet. But yeah, we just said it before, massive game Friday night, I think. And I love it when the big game's Friday night, because it really sets up the rest of it. If Richmond has a loss on Friday night, it really opens up a what if for the rest of the weekend and things like that.
There are 4 clubs below them just licking their lips waiting for the Tigers to balls it up, really, aren't they?
And the Bulldogs felt like they were a game. They felt like they were a game and percentage behind going into the last round. Well, they got the game back. And the percentage pretty much closed right up too. So it's now 115 Richmond, 112 Bulldogs. So there's not that much in it anymore, especially with 5 games to go. So look, it's all to play for. And would you be surprised if the Bulldogs upset the Demons this week at Marvel?
No, I wouldn't be. This is the nature of a team of the Bulldogs in particular that we've seen this year. And Bevo's so funny because he can throw the magnets around and it might work for a week. We saw a few changes against the Saints, and Max King was really well nullified. But it's funny, you just don't see it working 2 weeks in a row, and I'm just not sure what to expect from a Beveridge-led coached team at this time of year. Let's wrap things up there, guys. Another big episode, plenty that we've gotten through as well. If you have any questions for us at any time, of course, like I said earlier, @Footy Tips on Twitter is where you'll find us. We're pretty good at responding. We generally get back to people if they have any questions, especially to Christian, #AskChampionData as well. If you want to get some questions answered on the pod. Jake, hope you feel better.
Yeah, apologies for the sort of downbeat nature of myself today. I just feeling very rubbish, but didn't want to miss another episode. So trying to get through it. And as always, good to talk some footy with you guys.
I'm just happy I didn't have to do the commute into the office, which Christian, you still had to do.
Well, I didn't have to get a taxi from here to you guys. So
saving a bit of time.
One step taken out of my day was good. Yeah.
Very
Thanks,
good. To everyone at home, we'll speak to you in the next episode.
Listen to all the latest episodes by subscribing to the ESPN Footy Pod, wherever you get your podcasts.